brief this morning. Public offices and institutions remain shut nationwide following Monday's commencement of strike by organized labor over the minimum wage dispute. Although a late-night meeting between the labor and, of course, government could not stop the industrial action. However, agreement was reached to continue daily negotiations for the next week as government commits to shifting grounds beyond the 60,000 naira proposed as minimum wage. The government is said to have promised not to victimize the workers for their action. The resolution was conveyed to journalists by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akomere, in a meeting that had the Minister of Finance, Power, Budget and Economic Planning, State for Labor, including the President of the NLC and TUC, all in attendance. Now, prior to that meeting, the Nigerian Labour Congress and their trade union counterpart commenced their indefinite strike action after negotiations with the federal government deadlocked at the expiration of an ultimatum given by workers, which elapsed on June the 31st, when government proposed 60,000 naira against Labour's demand for over 400,000 naira from Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Kano, Taraba to Imo, among other states. Members of the union ensure compliance as education, air travel, healthcare, electricity supply, among services disrupted, as workers also demand for a reversal of the hike in electricity tariff.
As you can see, we've locked the gates for people, staff that are under level 14. Level 14 and above are in there working. But we know that if you allow everybody in, there won't be any effect. So anybody below level 14 should go home. That's what we have done.
Have you ever seen in our House of Rep or House of Senate when they just raise up and sponsor a bill on behalf of workers? They will not. And they know we are the engine room for the money they were spending. But they will never sponsor any bill on our behalf.
Well, the strike is not against state government, it's a national directive, and we are duty bound to comply.
Let's speak today.
No, we need to talk to somebody.
The awareness must be there.
No, you enter and follow them. We need to talk to somebody. Take him to whoever that is in charge. We need to talk to somebody.
Well, that strike continues today. Meanwhile, students writing their final examination in secondary schools across the country may have nothing to worry about despite the strike action. That assurance is coming from the West African Examination Council, WAEC, who argued that a Nigerian child should not be a casualty of an industrial dispute as the examination is taking place simultaneously across the West African sub-region. WAEC, in a statement cited by one of his branch controller in Ekiti, Mrs. Ati Lawson, says although it shares the pain of the Nigerian workers, it directed school officials and parents to make adequate arrangement for their students to sit for the examination. Now, for a former governor of Ogun State and senator representing Ogun East, Senator Benga Daniel, it's an appeal to Nigerians to be patient with the Tinubu-led government amidst the challenging economic conditions which has triggered industrial action by the labor unions. The senator made the appeal when he paid a courtesy visit to Channels Television corporate headquarters in Lagos, where he also delved into the debate on whether or not to return Nigeria to regional government. He's promising to vote in support of the bill if it were to be presented before the Senate. Now, over 8 rescue students from Confluence University of Science and Technology, Osara, in Kogi State have been handed over to the state government by the military. Shortly before handing over the students at the Army headquarters in Abuja, the Deputy Chief of Operations, Major General Emmanuel Emeka, says the military remains determined to rescue all abducted Nigerians. On his part, the governor of Kogi State, Usman Ododo, assures residents of the state of their safety. The students who were taken hostage by terrorists on May the 9th, 2024 were rescued on June the 2nd by troops of the Nigerian Army.
At this level, I have come to realize that the Nigerian Army has all it takes to stamp out kidnapping, banditry, and all sorts of criminal activities from our land, because the level of synergy, level of understanding, collaboration, and coordination carried out by them professionally is highly commendable, and I sincerely appreciate you and your men. I want to promise that Kogi State will always be there to partner with you. You are ever ready to answer your call at any point in time. And fighting crime and criminality in our land, we are up to date. We have all it takes in terms of equipment. We will continue to collaborate and synergize with your agencies to make sure our land is free of all these criminalities.
So let's get back to our lead story. We told you that late last night, literally all of us journalists were waiting for that meeting between government and Labour to see whether they will call off the strike or whether government will shift grounds. But there was an agreement signed and the negotiation continues today. But after the meeting, the secretary to the government of the Federation spoke to journalists. Let's take a listen to him.
After exhaustive deliberations and engagement by both parties, the following resolutions were reached. The President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, is committed to a national minimum wage that is higher than 60,000. Arising from the above, the tripartite committee is to meet every day for the next 1 week with a view to arriving at an agreeable national minimum wage. Labour, in deference to the high esteem of the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, is committed in paragraph 3 sub 2 above, and it takes to convene a meeting of its organs immediately to consider this commitment. And for no worker will be victimized as a result of the industrial action. Down in Abuja on the 3rd of June 2024. And this document is signed for the federal government by the Minister of Information and National Orientation and the Honorable Minister of State for Labor and Employment. For the organized labor, President Nigeria Labour Congress, President Trade Union Congress. Let me reassure Nigerians that we have had a very realistic and patriotic meeting, and the results will be very, very manifest soon. Thank you very much.
Well, so our eyes and ears are waiting for what will happen in the next 1 week based on that meeting, that resolution, that kind of agreement. But let's tell you that there is a mild unease in the financial sector following the central bank's decision to revoke the license of Heritage Bank with immediate effect. The Apex Bank cites the inability of the board and management of Heritage Bank to improve its financial performance, which constitutes a threat to the bank's financial stability. In a statement by the CBN, steps taken to reverse the poor financial fortune of the banks have failed, making a revocation of license inevitable in line with Section 12, subsection 1 of the Banks and other financial act, that's BOFIA 2020, due to the breach of the act. The central bank has now appointed the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, as the liquidator of the bank in accordance with Section 12 of the act, and assures the public that the nation's financial system is in good stands. As this in business, Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, Ms. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, is concerned about the impact of acceding to labor's demands by government. Ms. Oyerinde, who was on our business program, believes that over 400,000 naira the union is asking for will cripple businesses in the country.
Now, what we are meant to recommend is a national minimum wage. It's very important to address that. The minimum wage below which no organization, either in the private or public sector, should pay. The wage ordinarily for the most vulnerable worker. It is not, the process is not to set a general wage increase. It is not. There has been conversations about living wage or there's no living wage. This particular committee that we have, it's set up to come up with recommendations for a new minimum wage. And for us, one of the key objectives is that you must protect jobs. Because if organized businesses continue to suffer the current situation, look, there's no way we can protect jobs. That is the basic reality of it. There's no way businesses can remain sustainable when the affordability becomes in question.
On international scene, from an impeccable academic credentials to Mexico's top political job, Dr. Claudia Sheinbaum becomes the first woman and the first Jewish person to be elected president of the North American nation. Sheinbaum won around 60% of the vote in the largest election in Mexico's history, marking a historic achievement in the mostly Catholic country. She will be taking over from outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, a longtime ally whose social welfare programs lifted many Mexicans out of poverty, making their leftist Morena party favorites in the polls. A PSG record scorer, World Cup winner Kylian Mbappe is heading to the Bernabeu after signing a 5-year contract worth 15 million euros with Real Madrid. It's a free transfer after the Paris Saint-Germain left PSG. The 25-year-old, who has scored 256 goals in over 300 appearances, received a sign-on bonus of just over £85 million from Madrid, who will pay the fee by installments over the duration of the contract. Mbappe joins Real Madrid just 2 days after Carlo Ancelotti's side won the 15th Champions League title to claim the double, having also won the La Liga champions. Well, those are the stories we've been tracking late last night, the last 24 hours, all the way to this morning, which will shape part of our conversation for the show and the rest of the day.